Hello everyone, and welcome to a short but special video on Victoria 3, where I have decided to dedicate way too many hours to trying to fit as many pops into the world as I can, until the game reaches the point that you're probably seeing now already, where performance begins to dip at various twists and turns. This has been an interesting little run here that started out as Prussia, became Super Germany, Central Europe, and now it's kind of become this monstrosity with a nice color. Performance has really kind of taken a turn for the worse here. We're in 1962, if you haven't noticed. And as I click here, it takes time to make things happen now. While paused, this is the game paused. So, I was hoping to get, like, 4 billion, 5 billion, even, like, way more pops before actually reaching this point. Who is, like, still not being treated decently? I'm confused. Oh, it's just community acceptance. Okay. Sorry, sidetracked. Yeah, so the game performance is pretty much just nosedived at this point. Yeah, not nosedive, but, like, it's kind of reaching probably about as low as it's going to get. The population is growing at a rate of 1.69% a year. Unfortunately, there is a bit of an issue, and another reason why I have to stop it where it is now instead of continuing. Not only is game performance dropping, but overpopulation is occurring in even the largest states possible, such as some of these states over here in China, and also, of course, in places like India, soon Japan, etc. Those hold a good, like, bulk of the population. Oh yeah, it lags if I try to move at all. But West Slovakia, weirdly enough, actually has almost 30 million people in 1962 in my game. More than Bohemia. And West Slovakia actually has 122 million GDP. The GDP is hilariously high. I know it's not the highest that anyone has ever gotten in the game, because my GDPC is purposefully low because I set up my law system with certain workforce reducing laws like legal guardianship and old age pension to keep the workforce ratio down, because I was aiming for 5 billion pops or more, and trying to employ several billion people at once is difficult. I have, if you count the peasants, I have over 700 million people employed right now, with 30 million still unemployed. The construction pool is arguably having the time of its life. There is way too much reinvestment going on, to where they just cannot spend it all, even if I let them have the full construction pool. And I will say, they have been having quite the fun time with some mega projects in the last decade or two. Last 2 decades, really. Especially over here in China, because apparently you just can't have enough textiles. This is 2.1 million in clothes from this one textile mill. It's not even making luxuries. If it made luxuries, it could, oh my god, oh my goodness, even if this was switched over to make luxury clothes, we'd still have notable demand for it. It would make even more money. This is ridiculous. The GDP could definitely be a lot higher too, because the mines over here, which are just producing an insane amount through throughput thanks to the companies owning all the buildings, because I did my best to make sure as much of it was owned by them as possible. I'm not even using diesel pumps yet. Like, these are not in their final form. I'm just trying to employ as many people as possible, so I am purposefully being a little inefficient. We're using over 500,000 coal, and 114,000 of that is just to get iron out of the ground. If I switched my iron mines to diesel pumps, I would literally cut out about 1/5 of my buy orders for coal. Single-handedly, if I just switched the iron over to use oil instead. I'm nowhere near using oil. I haven't even made cars on purpose, specifically just to be as resource efficient as possible. I didn't want electric industries, mind you, but once the tech was unlocked, they just started building them. I don't even know how we're running 1,000 oil rigs without it just... Oh, right, we're not using the combustion engine, Derek. Yeah, when I said we're being a bit inefficient with the economy to maximize how many people we have, I was not kidding in the slightest. I was not kidding. We have so many convoys as well, because I expected port connections to be a massive issue. But it turns out when you locate most of your economy over on one massive, heavily connected supercontinent, because, you know, even though the Suez Canal is built, this still counts as one full connection. Yeah, it makes things pretty easy. Even if you get an economy rolling over here a bit. What other mega project do they make? Yeah, how about 546 paper mills in Shanxi? Because you can't have enough paper. You genuinely can't have enough paper, especially with bureaucracy that we're having to run, just to keep track of everybody. Oh boy, the bureaucracy. We are using over 1 million bureaucracy, and about 27,000 of that is just because of buildings we own. The vast supermajority is just institutions. And then, of course, the people. Surprisingly, people are really cheap compared to the institutions. Like, really, really cheap. Maybe way too cheap. A lot cheaper than I was kind of expecting there. But that's fun. And there are some very fun buildings. I kind of want to see what they look like at full productivity. Like the Sicilian mines here. It's all owned by one company, and I will show you how big these companies are, aside from the oil one that you just saw. But this Sicilian mine with diesel pumps, it would make so much money, so much productivity, and that's with sulfur at a minus 30% base price. Minus 30% base price, and this is almost 28 in productivity without any systems. Granted, it's partially because the average annual wage is 10. Fun fact as well, I forgot to mention, the average tax that pops are paying, because I tried to keep the standard of living averaged out at around 20, because again, demand and everything. Yeah, people, about a fourth of what they make or more is taxed by the government. That's why we have so much excess wealth. Specifically to keep the standard of living down. If I were to just go ahead and wipe away most of the consumption taxes, we would probably see the standard of living rise globally by at least 1 to 2 points. Ignore the red area in China, even though we own it. We took it over rather recently, and it's not quite ready like everywhere else. Well, let's see. What the Wallachian minerals? Let's show that one. That one is good. This one has an abnormally high standard of living, and that's because approximately 1.2 million people work for the company, specifically in ownership. It just makes an insane amount of money. It's just sulfur and coal mines. Just sulfur and coal mines with a weekly balance of plus 3 million a week. And keep in mind, this is with sulfur and coal mines that aren't even using oil to mine out the minerals yet. So in theory, if you wanted to be insane, more insane than this, you arguably could start upgrading all those mines and getting even more out of it until the price collapses and then everything goes down the drain. But, you know, who's keeping track of that? But yeah, like, you've got a level 130 mine here that 128 are owned, just producing coal. Speaking of producing items, we make over 1 million grain and use over 1 million grain. This is just... It's just ridiculous at this point. Because groceries never really caught on because we choked the standard of living out. Speaking of which, if you want liquor, oh boy, there's liquor everywhere because apparently opium has just killed my liquor demand. That was a fun time in the late 1880s, I think it was, or something. I don't remember when it happened. Liquor prices just nosedived the moment India became a part of the market. Liquor was no longer profitable to make in the farms. It just collapsed. Speaking of farms, we do have some dazzling rice fields that are owned by the Raleigh brothers, which is a special company that you can find in India with the 1.8 DLC for reference. And just to show it off a little, this is 4,500. That's a good start. 159% throughput on a rice farm. If I maintain single crop, how much would it make? 169k grain from this one spot. That's ridiculous. Actually loses money if you switch off it too. It's actually a significant shift. But we needed, I thought we would need all the sugar we could get for the groceries, the food industries, and yet the price of them is just down so much. Anyway, Raleigh Brothers. They actually boost textile mills and sulfur mining throughput, which is a little weird. I wasn't going to pick it initially, but I saw the sulfur mine and I wanted to see how high I could get the sulfur mines. I even have the fisheries, because it's a stationary resource that the company can just buy into and build up. They don't own anywhere near as many. It's been a bit touch and go to make that work, but it works. I've got a bunch of them everywhere. That we own, of course. What else? What else? Oh, I did forget to mention, if you want the Pan-Europa, which is technically classified as a fascist state by the game, it is a combination of corporate state and then some form of authoritarian distribution of power with the Central Europe tag. Just for anyone that was curious that doesn't know it. The market is fantastic. There's, you know, pockets of resistance to the global order still that would have to be cleared out that I'm working on. I normally don't go for large or world conquests, so I've been hilariously slow on getting it all done. Hilariously slow. But that's kind of par for the course for me. But there's just, at any point, the private construction pool just starts plopping down a bunch of textile mills somewhere. Just somewhere, anywhere, doesn't matter where, as long as there's someone willing to work. But yeah, we actually almost make 1 million clothes. We're over 800K now. That's a lot of clothes. 500,000 tools, 500,000 fertilizer, paper. Oh, over 400,000 steel. Oh, steel, that just sounds delicious. But yeah, these companies, this one, 4,300, it's just iron and lead mines. That's all it owns. Again, could be producing even more if it given the opportunity. 148 in average wages. All of these people are ridiculously wealthy, and they would probably be at 1 to 2 point standard of living higher if I dropped taxes. Maybe even 3 to 4, depending on how hard I drop the taxes. These are just making so much wealth. It's not even funny. Good old institutions here. But yeah, so that's kind of why I'm stopping it at 3.4 billion instead of going further, is the game performance is dropping, and the pop growth is going to increasingly fall over time, because states like West Slovakia here are suffering from overpopulation, and instead of averaging out at about 1.6, 1.7 pop growth, it's dropping all the way to 1.05. It's starting to bottom out and crater. And I know I could use the food company to grow the population, and I was for a long while, but I had switched it over to where all 5 companies here were specifically investing in limited resources, things that we couldn't build up indefinitely. It was for the long-term strategy to get the population as high as possible. And let me just show you how the game looks while running for a week or two. Just, this is kind of how it is. Trying to move around lags it a bit. It takes a bit to get through each week here. We are fighting a war that hurts it a little, but as you can see, the game's performance has dipped. It might be even a little lower right now because I'm recording, so the game's performance might be hampered slightly. But that is the other issue as to why. And this is including using the rule folk as well, just again maximizing those limited resources, trying to not let the trade union have power because we do not want solidarity to be active, which necessitated the establishment of the questionable party, we'll just call it the Nationalist Party, to make sure that the trade union couldn't get votes. Actually, you know what? I want to see really quick, what does it look like when you suddenly get an additional 17 billion votes? I know there's a billion voters. That's actually amazing. There's a billion people who are voting. Oh, that's beautiful, because some of our dependents are politically active due to old age pension. We're actually going to go ahead and see what this looks like. I want to see what the clout shift looks like, because right now, I think it's up right here, right? They had about 9 billion is what they have. Now it's going to be another 17.54. And the trade union only has 3.37 billion from wealth. Granted, that is a lot. So does it just delete them from existence? Do they just vanish? The game is slow. Not quite, but the trade union, because that is a lot of generals. We can't even see the graph. Okay, well, that's fine. I think, yeah, you've got 360 million people who follow the trade union, yet it's weak because of political law and all that. So it doesn't quite eliminate them from existence. Surprisingly, the industrialists are still hanging on because of all the companies, I assume. Oh yes, you may have noticed all the atheism when I was clicking on states. Yes, we have been trying to, form a single cohesive religion. It's even getting into China, it's getting over here in India. In Europe, religion is almost entirely eradicated. That was just to kind of form a decent, just minimize the amount of pop groups for performance reasons without destroying acceptance from the religion, because if it was state religion, we're talking a 25 penalty, and giving an increased wage to everyone, which would have meant a higher standard of living, which we didn't want. But state atheism doesn't do that. So that was a great thing. So that's why I kind of wanted state atheism there to make everyone cohesive there. Sorry, I'm trying to find my words here. This has been quite a game. The Han are still in the majority of population after everything, but there's 182 million North Germans and 146 million Russians. In fact, because we always look at it in our videos here, I do want to see, is there any weird culture changes? Probably not. I mean, the French taking over Brittany is nothing new. I don't think there's anything too weird. Maybe all the Hungarians in West Slovakia, that is a bit weird. That feels a little wacky to me. I don't know what it is at game start. I guess the North Germans in Rostov. That is definitely weird. The South Germans in Crimea. Okay, so we do have a couple of weird things that kind of happened here, which is pretty neat to see. Because since we're Central Europe, there's a lot of cultures that people can assimilate into when they migrate here. I unpaused the game by mistake. Let's not do that again. Nothing is going to be weird over here. Maybe all the Flemish over here. But otherwise, I think this is largely normal-ish about it. Well, the Kurdish, that's a little weird. The Alemannic and Kola. Why are there Bengali and Arkhangelsk? I might be mispronouncing that. Oh, that's Bulgarians in Ufa. Okay, I take it back. This is a little weird. This is a bit of a weirdie. I think Africa's fine. There's just a lot of Dutch in a state, and Franco-Canadians. And then, you know North America, it's a mess. It's basically like play a game of which culture became the majority. Except this time, Yankee is not the majority in a lot of the states, because it's no longer a primary culture. So, Yankee and Dixie are kind of a minority in their majority, so to speak. There's Czech up here. Czech, Sorb, Slovene. They just all, like, got together over here and decided to migrate over. Irish. You know what? That's pretty normal. Ooh, ooh, Colombian. That's a nice color. Afro-Brazilian. As you can see from some of the cultures existing here, the Brazilians failed their journal entry to unify into a single culture. Oh, yes, South Africa collapsed at one point. That was interesting to see. It just kind of happened. Kind of ignored it, but it kind of happened. It was very neat. What else was there? I don't know if there was much else to go over, or things I really wanted to show off. Atheism's at almost 60% at least. Oh, yes. Okay, this reminds me. It's the census data. Some of our largest pop groups are still on subsistence farms just because they're Han peasants. 10 million people in a single group. Which is silly. So keep in mind, this is 10 million peasants with a workforce ratio of 21%. They're only demanding 163 grain at a base standard of living of 13. This is just how poor peasants are in their demand. I think it even says it right here if you moused over here. Yeah, plus 0.05 for peasants after the consumption factor multiplication. And so if you were to go to, let's find that really big building of paper mills actually. And just go to this group of like 4.95 million laborers with a base standard of living of 18. If we go here, it shows +1 for laborers with a consumption factor, so that's already a massive difference. They're demanding 1.77k grain. They're less than half the size, a couple standard living points higher. They're demanding way more because they're not peasants. I just wanted to point that out really quick to really hammer in again that if you want to grow your economy, employ your peasants into non-peasant jobs. Peasants are horrible for demand. And I think the unemployed are equally horrible. No, the unemployed should be normal. Let's check that actually. Since we're here, why not? How is it for the unemployed? The unemployed still demand the same amount. I think slaves demand the same amount as peasants is what was revealed to us lately. Okay, the Zulu have slave trade. Not that they should, but, you know. Yay, so 307. We're looking for this. No, slaves do demand a regular amount. Okay, so it's just the peasants. Presuming this is all correct, it's just the peasants who demand less goods. That is interesting to know. I will be taking this into account for unspecified reasons. I think Brazil still has slavery, actually, even after being torn to shreds here. Yeah, they do. Yep. Hi, what you see out there? Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, I'm recording for the first time at the new house, so there are new sounds outside, new sights, so the dogs have been having a lot of fun with that, so you're gonna hear them a bit more often because of that. Because they don't know what's out there, or they see random people going by, and it's like, who's that? What are you doing near the house? They're just walking by. Yes, I think this is kind of everything. I don't want to drag the video on for too long, it's already been 22-ish minutes. If there's more of this that you want to see, like anything specific that you have questions on, feel free to ask. I will do my best to answer. But this was fun, but this was really laggy. I want to get back to doing some Victoria 3 Let's Plays and doing some other games now that my voice is recovered, now that I'm not coughing a fit every 5 to 10 words. And I do think you could get this further. You could definitely sustain 5 billion people in the game. The problem is that the game engine is kind of giving up on me here. It is slowly getting worse as time goes on, as things pass. Maybe what I should have done in the game rules is done the aggressive pop consolidation for performance. Probably would have been a good idea. That might be something to take into account if you ever want to do this yourself. But with that said, thank you all for watching. I hope this was a little bit amusing to see the 3.4 billion people by 1962 in Victoria 3. And yes, this is in vanilla. I do my games in vanilla. If it's ever not in vanilla, I'm always going to show the checksum at the start of the game to make sure you know that. And I hope to see you all later.